Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Pixel Boss LinkedIn audio. I have lots of fun doing these, and today's topic is awesome. Again, we won't get too techie on blockchain Web3, but we will touch on fundamental things that are happening through the blockchain that is inevitably going to affect every industry. At the heart of anything we do, and we see it happening more and more, is the idea of loyalty and engagement. So we'll unpack some things, some strategies, some tech to consider at the surface area. I'll lean in throughout the conversation, but I'll just introduce you to my co-host, Mark Kelly, and we'll get started. Thank you.
Some background on me is that I spent the last 25 years working in the loyalty industry in offices in Australia and the United States, but working across New Zealand, the UK and Singapore as well. Last three corporate gigs I've had, though, have been at all loyalty roles at Crown Resorts, prior to that at ANZ Bank, and before that I was at Woolies. I ran a loyalty agency for 9 years prior to joining Woolies, so I've done a bit of work in that industry in this country, and before that it was doing the same thing at a loyalty and direct marketing agency in the United States out of New York. I've overseen strategic transformations. I've agonised over refining customer experience and designing what at least I thought were pretty innovative loyalty, digital and payment techs over my journey. So now, with a bunch of mega brains, I'm now having to build some game-changing tools for the space, which is the topic of tonight's session. Ivan, I think I'll just introduce our esteemed guests. So joining us tonight for the session, we've got Prashant. Prashant is based in Sydney. He's got a dev background, so he's got both tech expertise and business-oriented mindset. He's the co-founder of Enabler, which is a traditional and Web3 dev house. He's currently a startup advisor for several companies. So welcome, Prashant, and thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone.
Next we have Betty. Betty's based in Melbourne, which is where Ivan and I are too. She is the co-founder of Deadfellas, the success of which speaks for itself. A 10,000 PFP collection that generated over 34,000 ETH, and she built a phenomenal brand and community around the collection. Welcome, Betty. We're honoured to have you here. We also have Akash, who's joining us from New Delhi. Epic corporate career working at brands such as Nike, Sony and Walmart. He's one of the influential kings of all things Web3. Thank you, Akash, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for having me on, and also for those kind words. Thank you.
Finally, but not leastly, we've got Martin. Martin's based in Sydney. Martin brings the chops of a well-deserved AMI award for his work in loyalty and retention. He's also just launched a new agency, so shout out to Cheeky Digital, which is focused on digital and Web3 in particular. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks very much, Mark. Excited to be here. This is going to be a great conversation tonight, so let's get into it.
Excellent. Ivan.
Good stuff. I mean, I guess, from a traditional perspective, Mark, obviously, you've been in that space for a long time. What are the things that you think, stand out to you that need to be addressed, knowing what you know now with this new technology coming through? What excites you about Web3 into loyalty?
Yeah, look, just to set things up, I guess, there's a few things that are going on. With the death of cookies and the rise of all the walled garden data strategies, we've also got tightening privacy regulations all over the world, and Australia's going through its own right now. The first time we've updated the Privacy Act since 1988. Things are going to change, and there is now a rush to kind of fill the void with zero and first party data. And so, as it turns out, loyalty is pretty hot right now. It's going to become, if it's not already, the most important marketing discipline on the planet, and that is not a platitude. So there is a multitude of work going on in the space, people launching new loyalty programs, and unfortunately though, we haven't seen a huge amount of innovation in the space over time. It really hasn't changed much. We've got faster and better technology to do personalisation better, but really most loyalty programs you see out there are fairly transactionally oriented. And so probably the most important thing that's emerging in loyalty is how do you differentiate? How do you not launch a program which is just going to contribute to the damning numbers of more people enrolled in loyalty programs, but a fewer, declining number of people who are active and participating. So differentiation and customer engagement are the topics that are probably hottest right now. How are people going to go about doing that? So I think that's where we dovetail into Web3. I think that's where Web3 offers up some solutions, certainly in the customer engagement side of things.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, look, let's just walk through. And I mean, Betty, from your perspective, what are the things? Obviously, you've kind of been there and you've birthed your business through Web3. What are the things that you found the most challenging and rewarding that now traditional business should sort of look at, not necessarily as a North Star, but some early learnings from you? You've been in the weeds for a while.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having me. I think that the redefining of the relationship between creator and consumer, and not only the way they interact with each other, but the way they see each other. We have more of a circular value exchange rather than I create this and you consume that and that's how it works. It's less transactional, more emotional, and I think that is the way that marketing is going in general. I think that especially younger generations, they're savvier to marketing and they're not going to get involved in things that they're not emotionally and deeply connected with. It doesn't resonate with them on another level than just consuming. They have to be rewarded for participation, for example. There needs to be reward for the place that they have in brand building, which is very, very important. None of us would have a company if it weren't for the people that were actively supporting it. So yeah, that's interesting to me, and I do see a lot of brands now already leaning that way. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people move into Web3. Even in this bear market, you've got giant corporations continuing to expand on their efforts here. So yeah, I think you'll see a lot more of that.
Yeah, sure. And I just want to talk to that a little bit because I think just the jarring difference for me is traditional brand, whether it be national, global, they've got their very clever marketing team, their ad agencies that come up with a big idea above the line, through the line, everywhere, at every touch point. It is pushing a message out to community and to the market, to their customer, whatever they want to call them. And the very big difference with Web3 is people have started building in silence with friends, and friends turn into more friends, and ultimately the message gets morphed, and then that emotional moment kicks in because they're building together. So as it gets bigger and it gains momentum, it's really strong at the core. So it's that ground up approach with things that's really start to make a difference, and that's what creates that engagement for anything. And ultimately, that to me is super important when we're developing modules or tech or strategy. Our metric is engagement, not reach, because there's a huge difference on the outcome on that. I'm not sure if that resonates with you, Betty.
Yeah, it does. I think that people feel, when we win at Deadfellas, for example, the community feel like they win too, because they've been active participants in the brand building process from start to now. And it's like the way that the community interacts with each other is not typical of how you would see being built around a brand. They speak to each other every day. They support each other in real life. They're in voice chat all day. There's people like really genuinely forming relationships, and the common denominator is their participation in our brand, which is a crazy thing to think when you look at actually what it is, which is its IP. It's a character brand. It offers so much more though, because it's giving people an outlet to express their identity and celebrate other people's identity. We all like to laugh at the movement of PFPs and whatnot, but at the same time, I think it's one of the most fascinating movements in terms of social interaction and culture online for many, many years. For me personally, seeing it kind of blossom in early 2021, this PFP thing, was immediately, it drew me right in. Just the way that people define themselves and express themselves in their truest sense and in their most authentic sense, using a brand and being empowered by that brand and having part of it and all of that. that's mind-blowing to me. It completely shakes up traditional commerce and traditional brand building, traditional marketing. There's so much to learn. There's so much to learn for new brands and for existing brands. And yeah, I think it's amazing.
No, awesome. And look, later on in this time, I want to touch on the sort of PFP and NFT, because there's so many layers to that in itself that I'd love to share with people. But Mark, where should we go next, mate?
Sorry, taking myself off mute. Well, I thought that, we should talk a bit about, what we think people's application of Web3 is to loyalty. I mean, it's often discussed as, the most obvious and low-hanging fruit for the tech, and I guess a lot of people are referring to NFTs in that regard. But I'd like to get people's opinion. Maybe we'll start with Akash, just on how they think Web3 does apply to the loyalty industry.
Thank you, Mark. Maybe I want to step back a little bit because some of our folks may not be coming in from a marketing or a loyalty background, and therefore maybe the question that why even a loyalty program is required, or what really makes it so important really for a brand. So maybe just a bit of context there, that most of the brands actually are unable to retain their customers, and so as per certain research, it's only about 20% of future revenues that are coming from existing customers, and the cost of acquiring new customers really can be as high as about 5 to 20 times retaining your customers. So that is where it really becomes critically important to be able to retain your customers. Now, of course, there is a lot of other things that brands do or firms do in terms of having the right product or right distribution or right pricing and all of that. But ultimately, it's about how deeply you're able to really engage with your customers and drive that engagement not on the basis of induced transactions, which most of the loyalty programs end up doing, which we normally refer to as transactional loyalty. So where it is a buy more, you earn more, and then you spend more. So that kind of a treadmill. So you don't really want to put your customers on that kind of a treadmill, because they're going to fall off very, very soon. And all of these transactional loyalty programs, by their very virtue, tend to be faceless. But having said that, I think it's worthwhile mentioning that there are a few brands, and maybe we can just count them on our fingertips, who have really hit it out of the park. And they have membership loyalty members or memberships right from about 30 million to going to upwards of about 200 million for Amazon Prime. So they must be doing something right within the Web2 space. So come in Web3, the difference that it makes is, one, from a transactional loyalty, it enables, and maybe as we get along, we can talk a little bit about which tech enables that. You are actually able to drive those engagements and give them a sense of ownership within the brand. You can actually enable voting rights, which again makes your members they get involved with the brand in terms of maybe the future direction, a certain aspect of it, if not the entire brand, or maybe the future direction of the loyalty program itself. So this is what gives them a sense of ownership and becomes possible with the Web3 tech that is coming in. The other impact also it has is from a decentralization perspective, because all of these loyalty programs right now run not only on centralized systems and processes, but also a centralized mindset. And I think that is what really needs to change, which is also a challenge for brands to think differently, and then start thinking as to how much of this can really be outsourced or given out to the community, so that they are able to drive and create a future image of the brand itself. And from a centralized system perspective, again, it also gets into data security and all those other things. So we have had Marriott lose about 5.2 million guests' information, which was really very sad. And when you build your systems or your solutions on smart contracts on a blockchain, you are not only able to provide that level of security and even automated transactions with no intermediaries, but then you're able to layer it with other benefits from a tokenization perspective. Give easy on-ramp solutions where they are and create decentralized marketplaces, so that as the value increases, your community is also able to benefit in monetarily and not just emotionally in terms of being involved with the product. So Web3 actually brings in a lot of things on the table for brands to pick and choose.
Yeah, fantastic. But I think just to talk to that a little bit, the difference between centralized, where things are pretty much locked up and run and governed by either an institution or a platform like Facebook, Meta, etc. There's a lot of constraints to being Web2. With Web3 and being on the blockchain, it allows for a lot of agility, transparency, and security, and ultimately more back to the point of loyalty, where you can personalize the rewards to your community, because at the moment, instead of like it's this prize for everyone or this opportunity for everyone, as you start to deploy like a dynamic NFT, which means that you can start to add layers to that experience for that person that directly relates to them. It's based on their behavior and it's based on their likes and also dislikes. You're not going to send them something you know they don't like, and you could argue that Web2 does that, but nowhere near as good as this, and we can go deeper another time. I don't want to go too deep on that, but I think it sort of plays into what you're saying there a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we've seen not only projects do that, but also brands do that. So in terms of Porsche, when they've launched their NFTs, the NFT is evolving over a period of time into different things. Nike has done that, where smart contracts are composable, so they interact with others, and you get a different shoe that can actually be forged into real life. Now, of course, this can be linked to various actions that you do IRL as well. And therefore, what you have is very unique and very personalized to what you would really like. And that is the highest level of emotional connect, I think, that you can build with a brand, really.
Absolutely. And again, internally, we're talking about this, how you might get two big brands trying to leverage each other's database and experiences, but they're on completely different platforms that can never ever talk to each other because of IT saying, well, you know, that's impossible. Whereas you start looking at a decentralized approach through loyalty, whether it be Nike and Ferrari, it doesn't matter, the two brands, they're irrelevant. The point is that using a decentralized approach, you can now start looking at different platforms, different services and sectors, creating a more interruptible sort of rewards ecosystem, and that's pretty exciting. And I think that's a really powerful thing that blockchain can do for industry moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more, really. So it opens up those huge network effects, really. So when Nike is working with EA Sports, for example, now to bring in maybe Nike Kicks into EA Sports future games. The entire commerce can be done around this, where not only Nike and EA benefits, but also the players benefit, and while being totally separate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, over to you, Mark, because I think both of us can talk underwater, and you better take control, mate. He's on mute.
Sorry, I just coming off mute, but also laughing to myself. Look, we've been spending some time thinking about how we can apply NFTs to certainly a couple of aspects of loyalty, and probably one that's a bit underdone, which is the use of gamification. It certainly brings out strong behavioural change and the right way in participants. We're looking at that because we think that's probably a natural fit certainly with the collectability aspect of NFTs. And there's, you're only limited by your imagination on the way that you can design creative gamification strategies using, badges, stamps and the like when it comes to, setting challenges, tasks, scavenger hunts, all sorts of things. I think some of the challenges challenges are probably a good one to talk to. I'm not sure who's best on the call to address this one, but one of the ones for loyalty would probably be privacy, right? So public blockchains, everything is transparent and there to be seen. And sometimes if you want to consider putting all your loyalty program, the membership into an NFT, then you might inadvertently expose your database or certainly confidential information in terms of the number of members you've got, etc., for the world to see, and certainly your competitors. So is there anyone who's got a perspective, and maybe we'll start with you, Prashant, on this issue around privacy?
Yes, and I think this is one of the most common questions asked to me when someone comes to the blockchain program and they're like, oh, what about my data? Can everyone see what I'm doing and everything? And the short answer is yes and no. So it depends on how you actually structure what is on-chain and what is off-chain. So the on-chain transactions, obviously, you can put in terms of wallet address and how those wallets are interacting, how many points they are gathering and all that. Now tying that back to your brand or even your customer's identity is up to you, how much you want to expose. And I always tell people that just because you have a transaction of a coin or anything on the chain does not mean you need to tie that back to your brand or your company or the customer directly. That can happen on off chain. So how those IDs are correlated with the identity is a very good design, needs to be offline, off chain, and that way you have you still have the benefits of blockchain. And ZK EVM is becoming more and more popular, like zero knowledge proofs. So the chain doesn't have any knowledge about the actual, who the owner of these transactions are. They just know that these wallets are interacting with each other in a certain way, but all the information about how tying that back to the real world is taken offline. And that way you can still be secure while taking the benefit of the blockchain. But it totally depends on the architecture that people do, because when it comes to those designing, I think we are still in a premature stage where a lot of people are doing it, but they do not have the architectural maturity of how to design it properly, so you don't lose the privacy while getting the benefit of these new technologies.
So I just wanted to add to that. I mean, I know more about bike chains than I do the blockchain, but I do know that a lot of people have the concerns on this, and there's a couple of major global players that just purely run on private chains as well. So you can have a private blockchain. It doesn't have to be public blockchain. So depending on the data that you want to share publicly or not, there are different rails depending on what your objectives are. And some of the recommendations that we've had for some of our sort of bigger, more sensitive clients is only put on chain things that you definitely are comfortable with sharing as well. We all talk about how safe it is, and it's true, it is safe, but let's face it, it's no different to any other technology that's come before. There's always someone that finds a way around it, and I'm not a tech sort of security person, but I do know that, it's better to be safe than sorry in that instance.
Of course. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. The other point that I want to make on not just the security aspect of it, but the resistance aspect that you mentioned, what are the resistance on going to blockchain and everything. And I think it takes me back to a non-blockchain conversation long ago when the government of NSW decided that they will have an open data policy, and I can't disclose who it was, but one of the ministers basically just jumped in a room of experts and said, can someone find out how badly this is managed by exposing this data? And that's probably most of the companies are feared for. They're afraid of when they go on blockchain, that can someone actually reverse engineer the data and find out that we are not as due diligent when it comes to providing customer value. And it's a valid point, because once you go on chain and once you become publicly available that this is our loyalty and will stick to it, you need to confer with whatever you are promising upfront. So you need to be careful what you are promising, is you're going to be held on to that. There's no way of taking that away or playing around with that. And that's one of the resistance from a lot of companies that we are seeing when they come and ask about the loyalty program based blockchain solution. On the consumer side though, basically a lot of people ask me that why blockchain, what's the added benefit? I still have my MX point or contrast frequent flyer points. What difference does it make if it is on blockchain? And I think the key difference that people don't understand when you go on blockchain is the same thing, that the companies are held to it. They have to promise, they have to give the promises that they are making, and also that in future, and I can see that this is coming soon, as you mentioned, Nike is going with EA Sports and so on, these loyalty programs gonna get merged. And when you have loyalty programs transferable from one particular MX to contrast frequent flyer and so on, that time blockchain becomes very, very efficient. So right now, like, you might have a rule that, okay, you take your MX point and transfer to frequent flyer, and it takes away half of the point. I don't know, maybe it is because of the, manual aspect of like dealing that they have to do, or it's just a profit purpose. But with blockchain, a lot of those things can be automated and secured, and that way the efficiency can come and rewards can increase. And hopefully that will give more adoption as well. Yep. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Who haven't we heard? Martin, how you been, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Ivan. This has been I've been biting my tongue very hard as I agree with everyone on, what some of the, how Web3 is impacting loyalty, the pros and cons for it. From my take in the traditional, Web2, the loyalty space and the engagement space, I think that it is exciting. There's no question about it. I think, where we are on the adoption curve for Web3 and onboarding, everyone into blockchain eventually, and how that propensity is going to bring everyone on board very quickly, I think is one of the primary challenges to where we are at the moment. But I think the main things I see as important to point out is from a brand perspective. When I say brand, let's just think it's an organization or it's a community. It's the DAO, it's the entity that goes out to market with a product, which is all the community, and how they want to build, or whatever mechanism they apply to build their community, whether it's NFTs, whether it's some other blend of offline and online, similar to what Prashant said. I think that the main thing is everyone's going to need to pivot, and I think the new technologies, which is the biggest barrier at the moment, I think is the digital wallets and getting mums and dads, the boomers, to get their head around how that's going to work and how they can apply it. I think that's driving a new way of communicating and delivering the intrinsic value that I think that normal loyalties and communities are trying to achieve in building that sense of community. I think the pros are is you just get so much more engagement. There's a virality to it, and the community, similar to what Betty led into earlier, is the fact that this is so layered. You've got people actively wanting to participate. They're invested into their little community. It gives them their identity and some skin in the game. And I think that empowerment, whether it comes through engagement, I think becomes so much more powerful because it's also ownership, and I think that ownership actually brings brands and communities closer together because, it's like a share in a company. They're invested in that way. And I think, the downstream impact of a loyalty program run by NFTs or a DAO, it creates secondary markets, which is a disruptor in the financial space. And it also gives, new opportunities for people to interact with each other, with brands, and, potentially downstream with that, if it's been tokenized, put some money in their back pocket. I think it's exciting. I think the challenge is operating with less consumer data. I think, traditional loyalty campaigns, I agree with everyone that's already spoken. It's traditional and it's very transactional. It's very linear and it goes one way. And I think that's why, as everyone said, it's so saturated. Loyalty programs are everywhere, but that privacy and the consumer data, or the lack of it in the new space, we just need to work at new ways to harness what data we use to even drive that downstream personalisation that you mentioned, Ivan.
Nice one. Thanks, mate.
Go, Betty. I think to add to that, I find it a really interesting conversation that I've had with a lot of Web2 brands that we've worked with over the last 2 years. Especially in the first year, speaking to these brands in terms of organising the partnership and, knowing who to target and what to actually do and how to go about the marketing campaigns for them. something that was really difficult for them to understand was the lack of data and the lack of really being able to write down on paper from stats that you're typically used to pulling from various metrics of the users and people that are interacting. And I think that it's that switch that forces brands now, well, especially in Web3, and it's starting to leak out into Web2, to actually interact with the people that are interacting with your brand. Like, I personally know many of the people that are surrounding our community, and it's not feasible to know everyone, but to have a sentiment in your community that is solidified and galvanized by meaningful activations in the community, but also values, like a value system that you weave through everything that you do. I think that strong identity of a brand leaks out into a strong identity of a community, and getting to know people in that community results in being able to truly know your audience in a way deeper way than stats and metrics. I know we love stats and metrics, and it's just how we're able to really focus and fine-tune things, but there's a big shift to the complete other way that I also think is really interesting. And the brands that have been able to work with Web3 brands really well have understood that. You're starting to see as well in the luxury market, a lot of brands leaning into Web3. And I think what's really cool about that is, you know, luxury brands are so unattainable, but what makes them unattainable is the millions of people that can't actually get to them but want to. It's that notoriety, and those people are never rewarded for their really truly meaningful part of that they play in that process. And I think community building and rewards and all of that can really validate anyone that interacts at any level. I think it's really awesome. You're seeing it with airlines and God knows what else at the moment. I haven't seen anything that's really truly impressed me thus far, and I think there's really valid points about privacy. People talk about blockchain as if it's private and more secure. I don't think necessarily that's the case. I also don't think that the ways that we go about things off-chain are private or secure or more trustworthy. You know, we've got traditional banks and everything that do the craziest stuff. But I think we're getting there, and I'm glad to see the shift personally. I think decentralization refers to not just money, but opportunity, power, you know, validation and amplification of certain voices. So yeah, I'm into it all, and keen to hear more thoughts as well.
Nice one. So Mark, back to you, mate. In terms of like Web3 emerging tech impacting loyalty strategies, what are the things that you see, I guess, creating the most sort of disruption in a positive way?
Yeah, I think this is a good segue to start talking about Web 2.5 actually. Look, it's not hard to envision use cases for blockchain. I think what matters is not merely showing that something is feasible, but also making it work well enough to be practical and being able to show the world the value proposition. And you know, when big recognized global brands do something thoughtful in the space, it lifts trust and it creates a shift in the world, moving the industry forward. And, you know, I'm thinking of the likes of Etihad and the work that they've done with their NFT, which is ongoing. Where I think we have on the call actually Chris Walls, who was from Sephora in Singapore, and Sephora have done doing some great work in the space as well. And finally, probably the best known one, which is Starbucks. But looking at the work that these guys have done and just reflecting on their prior statement, I think the formula is something like, you know, you need a client that's willing to go first in this space, and, you know, that's what Ivan and I have been talking about ad nauseum. And you need a solution that creates value, and you need a path to adoption that's not too onerous. In fact, I would argue, and this is what probably the promise of Web 2.5 is, that it needs to be seamless and invisible to a mainstream customer, right? So let's talk a little bit about Starbucks Odyssey then, because I think it is one of the most interesting of our case examples. And I'll give a 30-second on it, but if you're in the Web3 space, you'd have to be living at the dark end of a hole not to have known about this one. So it's a new program. It's actually still in beta, and it was launched, I think, in September of last year. It's accessible from within the Starbucks Rewards app. And it doesn't replace Starbucks Rewards, but it's kind of an adjunct too. So it's an interesting exercise from Starbucks, and it's very thoughtful in approach. It's an adjunct to, not a replacement of their rewards program, and that completely leverages Web3 tech. So as there are 3 sections to it, people don't know. There's a journey section where members engage in various activities to earn points and Starbucks NFTs that are called stamps. They have a stamp section there, which is the place where you can go in, like a gallery where you can view your Starbucks NFTs, and then they have a market section where now through Nifty Gateway, members can trade their NFTs or buy special limited edition stamps. For mine, without getting too far into it, at least in my perspective, I guess 2 things stand out. Firstly, members can also buy stamps and earn additional points and trade, but importantly, using that Nifty Gateway behind the scenes, members can use their credit card to purchase just as they would for any other online transaction. Secondly, no one who participates in this program needs a crypto wallet, and they don't need cryptocurrency or to have any understanding of the underlying Web3 technologies. In fact, the term NFT is never used. Starbucks have put a lot of effort into making this look and feel a lot like a Web2 app experience. And for me, this is the promise. This is the future. So Starbucks have kind of painted the picture. This is actually what got me interested in moving into this space. I thought, with the commoditization of NFTs, with the likes of these layer 2 blockchains like Polygon, bringing the gas fees down to, very, very low cost, we now have the ability to kind of gift these things at mass. And with wallet as services, like the one that are underpinning the Odyssey experience, you completely abstract the whole Web3 tech. It's as invisible to a customer as a Web3 customer as a Web2 database is to a Web2 customer. So let's talk about Starbucks Odyssey for a bit. Martin, perhaps you first, just your perspectives on how you think, if you're familiar with it, how you think this is. Do you think this is the dawn of a new era, and what do you think where we're going to go from here?
I think, look, I'm 100% on board with what they've done. Kind of similar to what I touched on earlier was the fact is what do brands need to do to pivot to make this seamless? Because if it's so early, Web3 is a new concept for a lot of people. It's hard to, go down the road of educating them before you get them to adopt it. By even removing any reference to Web3 and plugging it into an existing, traditional app, I think we all need to take a leaf out of their book. I think that has been very smart. That's my take. My first take is they've done it right. I think they really understand that they're customers, and I think they've played their cards really well. And I think that they're potentially the best first mover. And with that first mover is the advantages of learning quickly and driving even a stronger engagement just by even just pioneering the new world, the Web3 era. So yeah, I think they've done it right. I am 100% on board with what they've done. We're neck deep in it. We love talking about it. I agree that when you say NFTs, like some people go, I really don't understand it. And they just tune out, their eyes roll back into their head and they go, look, let's just move on to something else. But by moving away, they've actually gotten closer to their end goal. So yeah, I think it's a good move in my book.
Yeah, cool. Akash, have you got some thoughts? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, sure, Mark. And I would absolutely agree with what you said and what Martin said there. So in terms of the way they have approached this entire piece, and I think that's pretty amazing. And probably most of the brands need to learn from that. There are a whole lot of friction points when you're trying to onboard people from Web 2 to Web 3. Historically, or maybe not even historically, just about a year and a half back, there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of fun, and people did not really understand. And so therefore, there was a lack of trust on anything blockchain or anything related to NFTs. So they have consciously stayed away from those terms, while on the back end, they're building using those technologies. So I think that was a great move. By integrating fiat, they absolutely did away with the need for, even setting up a crypto wallet, which can be very challenging for most people, and it is really. So that also helps onboarding people. The other important aspect was that it was not in any way replacing or impacting their existing very successful program with maybe 30 million members or whatever the number is. So what they essentially did was create a pipe from Web 2 to Web 3 for people to, at least start on their journey or partake on that journey, and start to engage and interact with the brand in a very different way from what they were used to before. So the existing way of engaging and interacting with the brand continues in terms of you earning points and other things or collecting points because you have those stamps and other things. But then here is an opportunity that if you undertake this journey, which they call Odyssey, you unlock newer benefits in terms of maybe even being able to go to where they process their coffee or maybe going to a farm. So those kind of very unique and curated experiences that become possible. So that really takes that engagement and that emotional connect that we've been talking about to a very, very different level. So that's incredible really from a brand to be able to do that. The other thing that they also enable is sort of P2P transactions. So you're able to, buy those stamps and other things. So that is the beginning of community engagement at a different level with a bit of commerce also built in. So the point here being that, if you are my ambassador as a brand, historically, I expect you to go and promote my brand and I take away as a brand all the profits. But the moment you move into Web3, the community takes the lead and they become brand ambassadors. And when they create value, that value or the call it profits or value or whatever gets shared between the brand and the community. And I think that really is the difference that we need to understand that becomes possible with this new technology that's available to us. And I think Starbucks again is doing a brilliant job of this. So I'm totally on board with that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Just to pivot a bit, if I can, Ivan, I just want to just talk about dynamic NFTs because this is probably the other aspect with commoditization and wallets as a service that has got me excited about the space. And that's because I guess traditional loyalty marketers like myself, practitioners like myself are, kind of have been for a little while now been obsessed with personalization. Just makes sense, right? That you think that any communications that you send to customers are relevant by making them personalized. And the nature of a dynamic NFT being able to be updated in real time speaks to me at a level that kind of connects those two worlds. It means that I can kind of bring the work, the good work we've done in with customer data platforms and marketing automation platforms. And we can start to do that, bring that personalization, the ability to add and update an NFT dynamically. It means that we can actually use that to, from a utility perspective, to kind of be very contemporary and use all manner of triggers and context to update an NFT to make them even more engaging for customers. Prashant, have you had any experience with dynamic NFTs to this point?
Not directly. I know about dynamic NFTs, but I think the point about how they were talking about the customers becoming the brand ambassador and then participating in the benefit that brand receives, I think dynamic NFT can really enable that part. We are seeing a lot of the use cases coming out of that requires more around things that how you can not only transfer the ownership and all that, but share the ownership, fractionalize ownership, and the value and ID, the combination of value and ID in the token. That is really powerful mechanism that enables that.
I just want to talk.
Martin, have you? Sorry.
No, you go, mate.
I was just going to ask Martin if he's had any experience in the space.
Yeah, none yet, mate. But I am excited about it. I think a dynamic NFT, like you said, if that's changing in real time, that is almost, to me, in old world terms, is just getting eyeballs stuck on your product, for a lot longer than, what people would normally anticipate. And I think if it's done right, it's just ongoing engagement. And I think that's a powerful thing when it's done correctly. But yeah, looking forward to getting my hands wet with those tools in dynamic NFTs.
Akash, have you seen any applications that you might want to talk about in that space?
So I'll mention indirectly maybe just a use case with athlete rankings and other things. So if they have their NFTs or you have those cards which become tradable, so as and when their ranking changes in the real world, the dynamic NFT automatically gets updated and therefore it becomes maybe rarer and rarer. So that becomes one great example. But even from a brand perspective, if you're running a tiered kind of a program where, by doing certain actions or by, doing certain activities, you earn more points, then your NFT itself can actually continuously evolve over a period of time. And then it not only gives you access to improved services or maybe access to specific content or exclusive content, but then again, the value of the NFT itself or that membership card, whatever it might be, continues to evolve. And again, it becomes tradable at a higher value over a period of time. So membership and tier badges is another great example that brands can use really for dynamic NFTs. And it can even be used for your cross-brand partnerships where your activities on one brand can actually impact your NFT that you own in a different way and therefore make it much more exclusive or much more valuable to the owners.
Yeah, brilliant. Benny, have you started to think about how you might employ dynamic NFTs in what you do?
Dynamic NFTs are really common and used quite a lot by most people. I've seen them for a really long time. I think one of the first ones was a while ago. I think it was 2021. At some point, there was this really funny NFT that was Robert De Niro, and it would change with the movements of the Ethereum chart, which was pretty funny. But that was one of the first times that I'd seen it in action. In terms of seeing it moving forward, it's part of our strategy. It's something that we're utilizing and actively developing around. We are building a TCG, which for anyone listening that doesn't know, that's a trading card game. It's fully digital, and so the deep on-chain customization aspect of trading cards within our game depends on dynamic NFTs. So you see it often, especially in brands that require you to play games or fill out certain activities or whatnot. And I think that people are starting to cotton on onto how they can be used in terms of loyalty and rewards and that sort of thing. But I think a more interesting aspect is not thinking about all of this as like how can you apply reward systems and loyalty systems as and use them in Web2. I think it's like shifting the whole thing and disrupting the whole thing and what the next iteration of it can look like. Because I find loyalty programs really boring. I think that it's kind of done and over, and it's not really a reliable metric to look at in terms of user acquisition or even retention. But bringing dynamic NFTs into the whole mix, it gives people a reason to participate. You can look at who's actively involved because obviously things aren't automatic. It's cool.
Yeah, excellent points. Ivan, sorry, I talked over you earlier.
No, well, it's nothing new. No, just to talk to that a little bit, I think that for me, what's special about dynamic NFTs as a concept is, yes, you can basically, through doing that, you can update the metadata. And let's just say you're running a football club, you got 60,000 members, and they all opt in through a ticket. Now that ticket gets them to whether it be a jersey, whether it be as soon as, let's say you sell 5,000 jerseys, and now you add the gamification component and scarcity model. Some of those people might get a meet and greet in the locker room, or they'll go and get upgraded tickets. Like, you could start to really create a lot of movement within the community. And why that matters is because everybody that's already got that ticket in hand is fundamentally a super fan, so it means a lot to them, and that's the difference when you're talking to an engaged audience, because everybody there gives a shit. Like, if Betty does a promotion to her community, everybody cares because they opted in. They're there because they want to be there. It's different when you go into flybys or if you're going into a Qantas situation where it becomes an extension of something you did, and you kind of, the right smile at the right time, you sign up. A lot of memberships and loyalties are there more as an act of why not, versus I want to be here and I'm part of the movement, and you create that. And the beautiful thing about dynamic NFTs is you continue to serve experiences, always moving forward with a smile. And the people that don't, how good's that? Because you could understand, okay, they're not opting into that, so now you can serve them a different experience or a different moment or a different exclusive offer, and you start to get your way through that, and you start to unpack that, and I think that's really powerful. But one aside from that, the dynamic NFTs are great. The other one that's really important to sort of call out if you're running a membership program is like a soulbound NFT. So it basically acts no different to a passport or a license, which means that NFT can't be transferred, and therefore it only belongs to the person that it says it belongs to. And there's some really good use case ideas on how that's powerful. And then there's a lot of other things that fall off that. Another one that we've been doing some ideation with for some of our clients is when you start looking at like a breeding program, for example. So at the moment, say if you buy into a project and you get 2 particular NFTs, and you basically you drop your codes in, and then it breeds you another NFT based on that project, and that's really cool. And there's lots of really examples of that, and Betty could probably talk to that a little bit more. But I think that from a breeding perspective, if you want to really look at it from the lens of a brand and reaching an audience, like if I've got a breeding NFT and I want to send it to 50 of my mates and they opt in, that's pretty cool, because they're now part of my club, our club, and they're attributed to my network. Now I can be served an experience, me and my mates, my community. So it's a sub-community within a community, and there's layers and layers of awesomeness to that as well. So that the idea of breeding is really cool in a bunch of different ways. And then the last one regarding NFTs is also when you can actually go and burn an NFT, and that's whether you want to create scarcity or you want to create that moment in time where you go, hey, in the next hour, opt in and get X, but it's only a window for an hour. So if you want to drive sales or awareness or something, you create that movement through that type of thing. And there are other examples, but yeah.
Cool. Just one that I want to, kind of a controversial one, or maybe it can help me understand my own loyalty practitioner community. There's a group out of the UK called the Loyalty People, and they frequently run surveys, so they email it out to their folks. These things run on LinkedIn. And the last one they did was about NFTs, and these are usually yes/no questions, but basically they were saying, would you launch, or do you think NFTs have a place in loyalty right now? And there was a resounding no to it, which I was pretty astounded by. 84%, I think, of people said that, of the loyalty community said, no, NFTs have no place, too early. What do people think about that?
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's misinformation, and the fact that mainstream media has driven a narrative for a really long time based off of a certain view or in a certain perspective of the space and what can be done. Unfortunately, there are actions and behaviors that are common in crypto and NFTs that represent us in a poor light, and those things get picked up and pushed to the masses, and so there is deep misunderstanding in what's going on. I think basically, while we're lacking in education, I don't believe that the average person should have to understand blockchain or Web3 or NFTs or any of this to feel the value and understand the value add to their experience. I think that it's our responsibility to build those experiences and use cases, which is what I'm actively doing, and I know multiple other founders are actively doing. Most people might not give a shit about NFTs or Web3 or blockchain forever, because some people just don't. Some people don't care about the finance industry or fine art or technology at all. But their day-to-day lives, they care about their own experiences and how they navigate their life and the ease of the way that they navigate that. And if we can create use cases that do help that along, I think then people will understand. But as it's being posed, it's almost being posed in a way where, of course, that's going to be the result of the poll, because it's being posed in a way that invites that result. You know what I mean? Like if they had integrated blockchain tech into some of their programs prior, maybe had like a month or so of people utilizing blockchain without even knowing, and then being like, hey, have you had a better experience in the past month, yes or no? That's going to produce a way more fair and less biased result, in my opinion.
Yeah, spot on. Ivan, we've got about 5 minutes left, but I've got a couple of questions. Do you want to address those?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. In no particular order, Sharu. I'm not sure, Ivan, how to...
just allow them up. I thought you meant the questions in the chat room. Yeah, there you go.
Hi, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear now.
Great, thanks. Mark, you made a very interesting point on the loyalty people and the survey that you did when most of the people said no to NFTs, and Betty, you were spot on that blockchain needs to be hidden under the hood. And what we've seen so far, success around NFT loyalty or customer engagement have been standalone NFT programs, which are a bit more intimidating for non-crypto community and users to adopt. But I feel, and I come from advanced NFT infrastructure space, and we are building various APIs and SDKs in JavaScript for exactly these use cases. And we have some amazing stuff on dynamic NFTs, which we were discussing a while ago. But the point is that if the NFTs are integrated and there is more work and research or more work done around integration of NFTs as rewards, like we integrate normal rewards into the existing loyalty programs, that's when it starts to get real and a sort of small steps that lead to engagement and adoption by the existing customer base. And then in parallel, there was an interesting McKinsey report recently that how does Gen Z want to communicate? And it was a huge article on community, the importance of community in their lives. And Gen Z loyalty and Gen Z spend as a target customer is a big priority and a challenge for all the brands. So I think that's where, if loyalty programs embed NFTs in gamification and community engagement and community rallies, I think that's where the real potential is. But agree, we need to, as an industry and as infrastructure builders and providers, we need to do a better job at hiding blockchain under the hood. And one of the interesting examples from Singapore is Grab doing NFTs along with Polygon and Circle, I think, the stablecoin as well. So, that was just announced recently. It's not delivered yet, but embedding NFTs into existing wallets and loyalty programs is, I think, a really good start to driving adoption.
Yeah, that's massive. That's great. And before we move on to the last question, if anyone here is running a loyalty program and wants to reach out to Mark or I or anyone on the panel, please do so. Mark and I have been tirelessly working on some tech that people can be using in the near future as an API to existing infrastructures and some standalone products that we've been designing. And I think that the topic around keeping the tech in the background has been really red hot for us for most of this year, because we spent last year trying to educate people that didn't want to learn. And it's not that they're idiots, it's just that everyone's busy, and it's also very complicated, to Petty's point earlier. And I think the thing that most Web2 companies that have succeeded, like Starbucks, have in common is they did a marketing campaign basically with a really cool product. It was never about anything to do with tech ever. Reddit did it, and others have done it, and succeeded in that fashion. But yeah, thank you for that.
Paresh, your last one.
Yes, hi. How easy or difficult is it to ensure interoperability and portability of reward points on Web3, especially when you are dealing with reward points which are earned on different blockchains?
I'll probably take this. Yeah. So basically, it all comes down to how you actually design the system. Now, tokens, whether, for example, if it is on EVM-based system, it can be transferred from one EVM-based system to another one. If you want to transfer an EVM-based system to non-EVM-based system, then obviously there are challenges, but largely it depends on what value you are storing in that particular rewards program. So the translation services, writing a translation service from one type of token to other one is not a very hard one. And nowadays, Chainlink, and there are so many other programs coming on which provides the interoperability and the transfer of the token from one chain to another one. But it all comes down to how you actually design the system. If the system is designed so that it can be done in the future, then it makes it easier to do it in the future. If it is not really designed to do that, then you can still do it. It just takes harder and longer.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff.
All right, I think we're at time. Probably one question from me just to end it, which is when will Google and Apple make their digital wallets Web3 wallets? It's not an if, right?
Well, I know PayPal has announced that they're starting to I think they're doing an NFT marketplace as part of their thing, and so it's just seconds away now, I think, across the board. That's my opinion anyway. What's everyone else think?
I feel like the same, but I feel like everyone just needs to chill with the idea, like I said, that people need to understand any of this stuff. They're just not going to. It's all about what it can bring you in terms of experience. That's why Reddit did so well. They didn't talk about NFTs, but they also didn't expect their community to need to understand what was under the hood. Like, I don't buy a car and ask the guy. I know many people do. Many people are car people. But I would never buy a car and say, how does this engine work? Like, to me, if it does what I need it to do and I like the car, I'm going to get the car. The same thing with any sort of program. I think we just got to move on and call a loyalty program and have it, if it's going to operate in a better way because of blockchain, cool. But if it doesn't and it's just a loyalty program on chain, what makes it special? What makes people want to even interact? To me, that isn't disruptive. It's not innovative at all. I think that we need to look at things from an experience. And, when we spoke about community, servicing the communities and giving them opportunity to have better experiences, not just put it on chain and think, cool, I'm going to pat myself on the back because I've used new tech. We often solve problems that don't need solving. I think a lot of time is wasted by a lot of people solving problems that nobody needed solved. But there are a lot of really cool applications to this tech that I think we just need to focus on getting it in there and utilizing it and getting it out to people to actually experience it. That's what we're seeing. That's what we saw with Starbucks. That's what we saw with Reddit. It's why things are being picked up now.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that, and just to add to that, it's the seamlessness. I think we all know we live in the age of instant gratification now. Like, we don't question a lot of things because it's not important. I kind of remember when I first got, had to do my pay pass on an FPOS card, there was a lot of, what's going on here? Do I need to trust it? No, now everybody just uses it. We don't think twice about it. And I think it's, we don't even have to call it the blockchain, or we don't have to call it loyalty or anything like that, because it'll just be what it is and we don't have to spell it out. So, yeah, we will move there quite quickly.
Absolutely. Let's just go around the room with closing statements from everyone and then we can wrap it up.
Maybe I'll just quickly echo what Barry and Martin said, actually. So, while tech needs to disappear into the background, we just need to deliver cool experiences.
What I think with blockchain or Web3, utilizing those technology, the engagement that you currently have from your customers, from the participants in the loyalty program is at the macro level at the moment, because there's a lot of manual systems and there are a lot of things that you need to do that cannot be automated at the moment. When you utilize blockchain or Web3, that engagement can be at the micro level. So you can go to the community of billions of users and still get everyone to engage in decision making, in participation, in rewards, or even in things that you want people to engage on, and provide the rewards instantly in doing so. And that is not possible using the traditional technology. So if someone is using blockchain and not doing that micro level engagement and participation, then they're just using a V8 engine and just driving around the 50 kilometer street.
Thanks, mate. Akash, you want to finish off what you're saying, mate?
Yeah, so what I was saying was, sorry, I lost my chain of thought. So tech definitely needs to, go back into the background. So, people don't really need to know what they're using. It's just like, the internet of today, we don't care where it's coming from, or what the URL is, or whatever it is. We just are bothered about the experiences. So that is what really matters. The other thing is about really knowing your customers and what they need, and finding the best solution to do that. And so blockchain is not the solution for anything and everything right now. So if it doesn't really fit with what you're trying to do, it's absolutely fine to either continue what you're doing or build something else which will serve your customers better. So that's all that I would say right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. That's why, from our perspective, we look at most things from a 2.5 perspective, because if it works well in Web 2, leave it there. Quite often it doesn't need to go across because it doesn't add value and it just confuses everything.
Yeah, totally. And Web 3 is still far away, I guess. We don't even have a firm definition of that. It's still in an evolutionary state. So Web 2.5 is where we are right now. So build with what's there. And I think everybody right now is in building a 2.5. There is no end state right now anyways. So,
yeah, for sure. All right, Mr. Kelly, sort of final last words, mate, and we'll wrap it up.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for everyone for coming, along to everyone who's joined the session tonight. Thanks for hanging in there for a little over an hour. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks to our speakers tonight, to Akash, Prashant, Martin and Betty. Appreciate it. And look forward to watching everyone's developments in the space.
For sure. Thank you. I'll echo that. So thank you, everyone. And again, if you've got any questions or you've got an ambition that you want to try and solve, we can't answer everything, but we might have someone in our network that can. So I think one of the good things about what we're doing is co-creating, and I think that sort of is a really strong thing to lean into. So look forward to seeing you guys in real life or online, whatever it may be. Have a good morning or good night wherever you are, and thank you once again.
Thanks very much, guys. It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.